Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of Monday with the Mayor. I'm Bradford Raths, and we've brought in Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz this week.
Road trip.
Yeah, road trip. So the subdivision control and zoning ordinances, there's talk now about combining them into one.
Yes, and that particular discussion emanated from the public meetings that we've had. It's as much as anything an internal decision, a guide. Again, for the general public, it probably will be something that may not matter at all, but in a developer aspect, or as you are looking at, especially in planning to invest in our community, there was a suggestion made to, instead of revise or basically reformulate our zoning ordinance and then a subdivision control ordinance. Both have been part of this ongoing public discussion that many communities are seeing a combination. It's my understanding that often, as it involves some of the same people that need zoning questions answered and or subdivision control questions answered, having everything in the same ordinance may be a benefit to us, may make it somewhat simpler. So that's really how that came out, and the Plan Commission has given its blessings to that. The steering committee, while it is not a committee that is essentially voting that carries weight because of state law, it is they also thought it would be a good way to look at it too. So we'll see how that progresses, and absolutely when the ordinances are prepared, we now will look at probably establish them as a single unified ordinance rather than having a subdivision control ordinance and a zoning ordinance.
Yeah. And a term you used before we talked here, workforce reverberation. Let's go into that a little bit.
I like that. What we have found, and I continue to be astounded by this, is that our workforce, our employers that have believed in our city and in our county to announce expansions, even at a time when we are once again the highest employable county in the state of Indiana. Let's just put it this way. They use the terminology, we have the state's lowest unemployment. No, I like to say we've got the state's highest employment, and that can't be overlooked. I am so pleased for that in all aspects of businesses, small to large, that we have been able to sustain this and really even grow it. But along the way, we have also had commitments, and some companies have had abatements, et cetera, that say, require job growth. Those jobs may be grown. Ultimately, are there people there to fill them? And that goes into an understanding of how our quality of our schools, which are very good, of housing, where do people live, and it's not there is not housing, it's the type of housing that perhaps would people want to invest in whether it's building homes or multifamily, and that takes sometimes engagement beyond the local real estate market as into developers, and we have had over the last month quite a bit of interest in workforce housing development. And it's funny how, I guess I should have expected that, but we've been talking about this since the beginning of the year, and that's the reverberation. It's getting feedback. We entertain, again, just today, I have had people express an interest that as of last week, just heard from an employer to say, you really ought to look at Jasper. And all of a sudden, those doors are being opened. I talk about maybe putting a worm in the water, Bradford. It's not my job. My job is to sell the community. It's my job to finance or fund these things unless they require state tax credits or things, but ultimately to encourage private development and to fulfill a need that they have to determine is here. I think we have that need, but ultimately there's a lot of research that they can do, and I do believe we're a really fine market for people to live in, for people to move to, for people to grow.
And as we wrap up here, we're heading towards the summer now, and there's a lot going on with the Parks Department.
There really is. At the last meeting, just some things to talk about. First of all, June 10th will be, following the Park Department meeting in June, will be a public presentation of some thoughts on the aquatic needs of the city of Jasper. We will probably have different scenarios from our company that is assisting with us on the aquatic needs, and they'll present them to the public at that particular time. Along the way, say over the course that the parklands we heard at the Jasper Park Department, we expect to have that open, we hope, by July 1st with what I would call a nature trail. That trail will be about a mile long. It will incorporate some grassy areas. It will incorporate some of the cart paths, and some of the cart paths have had some damage and we're failing, and we'll do some mulching in that area. So it's not something we're not gonna have bike riding and any type of boarding in there, wheeled operation, but you could certainly walk in that area. It's going to be about a mile. It will likely stay south of the back acreage of that, and we'll have the kind of marked off. We are very grateful because the Hanselman family has offered to us to enable entry to be utilized on the lower level of their parking lot of Clubhouse 61, and when that time comes, we'll make sure, and we will have a bathroom on the property, because we certainly don't want people to go into a private area to use the facility, so we'll have one in a maintenance area of the park. So ultimately we want to have about a 1 mile trail, and it will be very primitive, but again, it will be open, and the access to the parklands will be from the clubhouse side on a temporary basis, and I want to say thank you to the Hanselman family for doing that. Finally, another thing that comes into play is the discussions again of a dog park. As you know, it's been on again, off again. Park departments looked at this over a period of years, but we have right now I make an appointment. We participate as a sponsoring arm of the Du Bois County Leadership Academy, and I have an appointment to that. And that particular person, Jill Cravener, who's the administrative assistant at our street department and is a volunteer for the dogs that we take in as a city to care for them, asked me and said, Mayor, could we look at the dog park again? And I said, work with the park department first, and you certainly have my permission to pursue that as a project. And in doing so, they came to the park board and said, we really want to look at some specific properties, and we're not sure exactly where that will be, but I think it's taken a little bit different level of approach. We had a citizen who has over 1,000 signatures that a dog park would be used, and I think we've heard that loud and clear, how we could develop this and where it goes. I think we'd still welcome input, and that probably would be welcome again maybe in the next couple of months. I'm not sure exactly what the park board will do with that and when, but I think they're going to look at maybe what might be the optimal place to have it. Goodsweiler Park on the northeast side of Jasper is one. There's even some discussion that maybe because there's some land in the sports complex and it has limited use except during tournaments, and it's going to be a fenced-in area, maybe that would be another area too. On the south side of Jasper, you still have to drive and take your dog, but it also is a very wide open area rather than in a residential area of town. So we'll see how that plays out. I believe ultimately, though, we'll end up with a dog park.
So a lot to hang the hat on as we head through summer and towards summer.
As we always say, there's a lot going on in Jasper, and we're glad to be in the middle of it.
All right. Well, Mayor, we appreciate your time
You're
once
welcome.
again. That's been this week's edition of Monday with the Mayor. We'll be back with more news after this break.